Welcome back to Nourished Inside Out, the space where growth gets real and self love leads the way. I'm your host, Annetta Walklaw, and before we dive into today's episode, I want to remind you of something powerful. You are worthy, you are enough, and you don't need to wait for permission to love yourself fully. That's exactly why I wrote my book, Blooming with Self Love, to give you the tools, affirmations, and daily mindset shifts to help you stand in your power and own your story. This book isn't just words on a page, it's a movement. So if you're ready to stop shrinking and start showing up for yourself, grab your copy today with the link in the show notes below, and let's walk this self love journey together.
I was hitchhiking and he gave me a ride in his car. And that was the third time that he was in Cuba, by the way, from New York. He lived in New York. He gave me a ride, and 5 months afterwards, we were married. And 2 months after that, I moved to New York. Talking about mindset, I cannot even tell you. I'll tell you a little story. The first time I went to a CVS pharmacy, I sat on the floor and cried.
Everyone, welcome back to another episode of Nourished Inside Out. Today I'm here with Nelly Gal. She is an owner and operator of Live Vibrant Wellness and Aesthetics in Boynton Beach, Florida, and she is also a health coach. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nelly.
Hi, Anita. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. I've heard so many wonderful things about your podcast and I've been listening to it for a little while. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely, it's an honor to have you. So you have a little bit of you and I have a similar story, but kind of in opposite ways. So you're originally from Cuba and you moved to Florida, and I'm originally from Chicago and I moved to Mexico. So
Rose
not the
reversed.
typical. Yeah,
Not typical
exactly.
at all. Yes, definitely.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from going from Cuba to Florida and what had motivated and inspired you to do that?
Well, I mean, Cuba is, as you know, a very interesting country right now. I mean, we're a communist country. There's not a lot of opportunity in my country, and we always aspire to come to the U.S. and make a good life for ourselves and for our families. Currently, my family is all in Cuba, so I am a sole kind of provider for them. I support them monetarily, financially. It's a big responsibility and not for the weak of heart. So I had to come to this country to really, make a name for myself and make take advantage of the opportunities to live in America, so that I can take care of my family. So that was one of the main things why I came to America for, to just make a name for myself and have them have a better life.
That's incredible. I love that. I can feel like the purpose and the passion behind it just from you saying that. What was it like and how long have you been in the States now? What were some of like the mindset shifts that you needed? Because also coming a smaller town in Cuba and going to a completely different country, you need a different mindset for that. So what was that mindset shift like?
Well, in the back of my mind when I was growing up, I always thought that I didn't belong. For some reason,
Mm.
I felt very deep in my heart that I didn't belong in Cuba. It's something innate. It's something that I cannot explain. And I knew always that I was not going to be there for a long time. So call it manifestation, call it the universe, calling it however you want it. I met my husband at the time. I was hitchhiking.
Wow.
Coming from university. Yes.
Wow.
It is a story, and that's a story that I want people to understand about opportunity, right? There's definitely a luck aspect of it, but you got to be prepared when an opportunity presents itself. My eyes out, because there were too many options. There were too many things to buy. There were too many of the same thing, toilet paper, a paper towel. Like, which one are you going to choose? We don't have that. We don't have variety. There is no choosing, is what it is. And that's it. And to have an opportunity, talking about mindset change, to have opportunity to choose, it is unbelievable. And it's something that I'm so grateful for. There is a huge, it's a 360 or a 180 in a way to go from like having nothing to having everything. And there's also a feeling of guilt that you have because your family is not able to access the same amount of, options and advantages and everything. So it's been a struggle trying to compensate and, feel good about yourself where you are, but also help them and make sure they have what they need, at least to, obviously have food on the table and a roof over their head. So yeah, that's the story.
It's like the most like romantic, but like story ever of like how you can meet somebody. It's just, but that's also just shows you like how simple things are in countries like Cuba and Mexico. You're simply hitchhiking, and the person that picks you up just ends up being somebody that you fall in love with.
And he's my really good friend. We stayed for 12 years together. I lived in New York City for 12 years. It was amazing, but it was also very cold and very distant from who I am as a woman and as a person. So I suffered through those years, wanting to come down to Florida, to this warm weather, this, Latin culture, this heat. There is a lot to unpack there, but it was hard. It was definitely hard.
Myself coming from Chicago, I understand that seasonal depression is a real thing. So I can only imagine, like, I've heard like Cuba has really warm weather all year, similar to Florida, but that's not New York. New York is like Chicago, and it gets really depressing, especially when it's dark at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
So how was this shift for you going from New York to Florida? And when did you feel like this is a decision I need to make? What pushed you?
Yeah. The minute I stepped into a puddle of snow and slush in New York in the winter, I was like, can we go to Florida now, please? And it didn't happen for 12 years because we had a business. So we had a med spa, the same thing that I have here to do by myself. We had a med spa up in New York for 7 years. And then I went to PA school to get my medical degree in New York for another 5 years, And then at that point, it was 12 years. And I wanted to come to Florida every single year that I was not here. I was very depressed. I was just, it's very cold, and I really didn't know how to dress for the cold, and
you don't.
I just don't. Well,
you don't look at the weather. You just wear everything that you have.
It was a struggle. It was a struggle of like, another winter and another winter. And me and my husband at the time, we were having some issues, generally because of difference in age, because of difference in opinion and a lot of things. And at some point we have to make a decision, is if I want to spend another winter here with you, I am not happy regardless. So are we going to go to Florida together, or am I going to go to Florida? So we made the decision to come to Florida together. But we ended up having a divorce 5 months after moving to Florida. So I had to restart. And when I didn't know how to pay a bill. I didn't know how to pay a car. I didn't know he had control over everything, just because he didn't want me to bury myself in details or bother with any of these details of daily life. And I really had to learn from scratch what was a rent, what was the food bill, what was the electricity, where do you pay electricity, where do you pay your cell phone bill. None of those things for 12 years I hadn't any idea. So I had to learn. Not only that, I left with a lot of debt in my marriage. And coming out of that marriage, you really have to sit yourself and be like, are you going to be a survivor, or are you going to be a victim of years of being blind and being, in a way, controlled and manipulated? It takes a person with a purpose, because at the end of the day, my purpose was to always take care of my family and make sure that we're doing okay. And if I was not doing okay, they will never do okay. So I had to really sit with myself and be like, hey, you have to put your big girl pants and decide that you're going to succeed and you're going to make it, and you're going to go ahead. Yes, you can be alone and you're going to be fine. So that was a very very sad time, not dark time, but very sad time when you get out of a marriage of 12 years and you don't know who you are. You don't know what is your identity. You don't know who is that person that's looking back at the mirror. So, yeah, it was tough. It was definitely a turning point. But I had to do it because I was not happy and I was not going to live in a place for that much longer. I mean, I was very, very depressed and I didn't want to be like that anymore. So you got to make a change when you feel like that.
Yeah, it's definitely easier said than done. But when I listen to people's stories like yours, it's so encouraging because what people see on the outside in a relationship is not always what's going on behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
And I can relate with you when it comes to trying to be manipulated or your partner trying to have control over finances, what you do, groceries, all of that. And if you're truly not happy, it's better to walk away and get a divorce or split ways than just sit there and force yourself to be uncomfortable. Were there ever parts in your journey that you ever thought about going back to Cuba, or was that not an option?
No, not an option at all. I knew coming out that I am a person that always has this mentality that what is the worst case scenario? So my worst case scenario is I pick up my things and I go live under a bridge. Can I live under a bridge? Yes, I can. I will find a way. So it's like that mentality of like, no matter what, I got you and I got me, So it was, can I do this? Is this bad enough? It was never terrible enough for me to do something like that. But it was just like building after building, kind of brick after brick of like this insufferable sadness that you get from not being yourself. And I knew from very long before I, asked for a divorce, that's what I wanted to do. And I just didn't have the courage and to trust that I was going to be okay. That's why it took me 12 years. And I remember
years
that
is better than not.
Oh, 100%. And the last thing that I thought, I mean, just a couple of months before I asked for a divorce, I was like I was in my shower and I'm like, how long is it going to take me to really get back to me? Am I going to be a woman that is 45 years old or 50 years old and trying to like start my life? Or can I leave now and basically restart when I'm 33 years old or 34? Yeah, 33 years old. And that kind of clicked. I'm like, you know what? I don't have children. I don't have anything. We're not happy. And he was not happy with me because I was not happy. So there's no way that, he could be happy and not see it coming when I am expressing myself and we're having these conversations. So it didn't come as a, slap in the face or anything like that. It was a very understanding moment of like, yeah, we're not meant to be together. We probably are best to be friends. And that's exactly what happened. He's my really good friend. I love him very much, but it just didn't work out between us.
And that's such a great perspective, though, because most people don't want anything to do with their ex. And the fact that you were able to mend those broken relationships and mend those broken ropes shows a lot of courage. Well, what advice would you give to somebody who is in an unhealthy relationship and they know that it's not good for them, but they just feel stuck?
It's hard because I was there. Getting back to what saved me, I had a purpose. If you listen, I had a purpose. The purpose was for me to take care of the people that I love. And if I couldn't take care of myself, I couldn't take care of people mentally, emotionally. Number two, you have to look at the worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario? I have to go and live in a shelter. Okay, so I will go live in a shelter for 3 months until I can get a job. Okay, so how bad is that going to be? I'm going to be uncomfortable for 3 months. Is that going to pay off for what's to come? Of course it is. It's 3 months of being uncomfortable. You're going to get a job. You're going to, work your way up. You're going to get a roommate and restart your life. And number 3 is, how long are you going to disrespect and betray yourself? How long can you live with that? So it took me a lot of time. I betrayed myself for many, many years before I had the courage to do it. But in the search of, like, I did a lot of self-development while on the marriage that gave me the tools to leave. If you are not doing self-development, if you don't have the courage to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am not healthy, regardless of whomever I am with, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and say those words. I am not healthy, and I'm going to get myself healthy no matter what, no matter who I am, no matter the kids, it doesn't matter. You have to take care of you mentally and emotionally before, you can take care of anyone else. And if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm done betraying myself. I am done, feeling sorry for myself. I am done being a victim. I'm going to take, I'm just going to take the reins on me and bet on me. Then you can do it, because we can all do it. I am not special. I'm not this special person. And I see women in my chair right here, that they are on the same path. They are unhappy, but they're staying. Why are they staying? Financially, they're staying because they don't think that they can do better for themselves. Number 2, they're used to being with somebody that can provide, that can support in some sense. Number 3, there might be a domestic violence incident that they cannot leave because it is very dangerous for them. Or is the kids, well, I'm going to stay because my kids need me, and my kids need a dad, and my kids. And okay, that's fine. But you're extremely unhappy and you're miserable. So those kids are looking at that. And no one ever said those kids will never look back and say, ooh, I'm so glad my mom and dad stayed together, even though they hated each other. That never happens. This is stories of my clients. That never happens. So stick to your guns. Do a lot of self-development and healing on your own, because most likely the other person will not want to come with you in that journey. They're not up for it. It's not their time. I try to get my ex-husband to come into, do self-development and heal his own wounds. And he was not ready. He didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to discuss it. So who am I to try to push somebody to do they don't want to do? I can only do what I can do. So that's how I left and why I left. You have to take it upon yourself to do that job for yourself, so that you're healthy enough to make a decision as if you want to leave or you want to stay. And that's what I did. I told my ex-husband, do you want to stay in Florida, or you want to come to Florida, you want to leave, or you don't want to come with me? And he's like, I'm going to try it. And we did. It didn't work. And we just kind of amicably left that relationship, and we're friends now.
I can relate with you on the self-development, because I was actually doing a lot of self-development work before I got into my last relationship as well. But then the person that I was with, he was always trying to pull me away from it in ways by saying, oh, you don't need this. Oh, you read too much. Oh, you're spending too much time doing this. And then I stopped reading, and I stopped listening to podcasts. I was listening to what he was saying, and it was really making me spiral backwards. But that's actually one of the most valuable things you can do, because just because I took time to learn it and then I started applying it doesn't mean I unlearned it. So because I learned it once, it gives me the opportunity to start reapplying it at any point when I want to or need to again. Exactly. So I always say the one thing that people can't take away from you is your education. And I highly recommend people to read self-development books, to listen to self-help podcasts, things that uplift you, because your education is something people cannot take away. And something you were saying is that you wanted to heal with your ex-husband. Well, I wanted to heal with my ex-husband too. But you and I were females, so we want to be there and nurture the wounds of other people. But something that I've learned on the journey is that you cannot fix anybody. You can only fix yourself. And if somebody is not willing to do the work, then you can't put a Band-Aid on for them.
Absolutely. And one of the things that came back, because, sometimes you have to learn that lesson a couple of times for it to stay with you, right? So
Yes.
I ended up in a different relationship where I was the one again, on the journey. That person was not even trying to get on it. And it was so forceful the way that I presented myself to them that it put them off. And then I was the one getting the grunt of it. So why are you so pushy? The same thing. Why, you should chill. Because I was so involved in it, reading so much, listening. And I came up so strong in that relationship, pretty much started to push that person to make a commitment that they were not ready to make. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I am so sorry. You are not ready. And I was the one pushing you to do things you don't want. So the point of it is you got to meet people where they are today. And if you're happy with them as they are today, as they are, then you are good and you are in a good stage with them. If you get carried away with the idea of this person in a different stage, and that's what you're enamored with, then you got to step back and say, you know what, he's not ready. And I'm not going to set myself up for failure trying to save or teach somebody the better ways. That's something that they have to do for themselves. So in my new relationship with my new husband, I really love him for who he is today, with the flaws that he has today, with his mannerisms today, with his, financial situation today, and with the love that he has for me today. Because that's what I got. You only have the present moment. You don't know what's going to come in the future. And obviously you want to be with a good person, first and foremost, but it is the journey of healing, development, education, etc., has to be something that it comes from their part, not necessarily something that we can push our agenda into anybody's. And that's what I've learned going through different cycles of relationships. That one has been so clear with my husband right now, and it's what I want. Whatever he is what I want today. If it gets better in the future, amazing. But if it's what it is today, I love it.
And that's such a valid point on what you just said, is you love him for who he is today, not the potential of who he could be. Because at the end of the day, I think when we're early on in relationships or we're new to serious dating, we build up an image and a fantasy in our head of what that other person can be. And then when they're not up to the standards of who we imagine them to be, then we get disappointed. We bump heads.
Yeah.
We become toxic for each other. And I can say I've done that too.
Yeah.
I fell in love with my ex-husband, who I was creating him in my mind. So I love how you said you love your new husband for who he is, and he loves you for who you are today, not in the future.
Correct. And when you do that, there is so much peace. I'll say love, but beyond the romantic love that you can feel for somebody, there is peace. I never felt more peaceful in my life, and I'm 40 years old, in the past 3 years. And our relationship, if I tell you, this is another story, maybe for another podcast, but my husband, he was my neighbor, and we met, and he's Swedish. 2 months afterwards, after we decided to go be monogamous, he got deported because his visa expired.
Wow.
And we did a long distance relationship for 3.5 years. I had to travel to Sweden every couple of months for a year. Then I used to go to Bahamas every 9 days for 2.5 years. That was the only way.
Every 9 days.
Every 9 days, I will go to Bahama for the weekend and then come to work, run a clinic, run a multi-million-dollar clinic, and then get back to Bahamas. It has been, what I'm telling you, it has been a journey. And finally, he came back to America with all his papers, thank God, 2 months ago. 2 months ago. So I never
Two
lived
months
with
ago.
2 months ago. We never lived together. This is the first time that we live together. And to tell you that I'm so excited because we're just the same person. And he just completes the part of me that I need. And I do so for the parts of him that he needs. We have the same birthday. Yes, I'm just 3 years a little older than him, but yeah, it's a very fun relationship. So heal yourself first, know who you are first. It's going to take multiple times, multiple lessons. Learn the lessons. The lessons are there to learn. Do not repeat yourself. Do not repeat relationships. Learn what you can, and you will find that person that it's almost there, and you can just get there together in a way. We're never done. It's never done. We're always improving and getting better, and hopefully that's what life is growing. It's amazing when you can actually do it together instead of just one person kind of like pulling the other one when they don't want to come. That's my little nugget of advice. These are stories that I tell my clients all the time. Have faith, fix yourself first, heal yourself first, and that person will show up because it's inevitable.
That's wonderful advice. Thank you for sharing that. So, what are some things that have helped you get yourself back on track and get to know who Nelly is after your divorce with your ex-husband? What was that journey like?
The journey, it hasn't been the smoothest. I am a person that is very, how can I say this? I look for a lot of signs in the universe. I like to manifest a lot. I like to visualize a lot. I have 17 different notebooks. So what really has helped me is to understand that inherently I am a good person. We are all good people. We just sometimes need a little bit of help, and having grace for yourself, having love and understanding for your shortcomings. You know, when I got out of my divorce, I was disappointed with myself. How come I couldn't make it work? How come I couldn't change? Well, how come? And then I started to understand, well, we're different people. Why am I trying to be the same and conform to, somebody's mold so that I could be a good wife or I could be a good person? No, I know inherently I am a good person. Inherently, I want nothing better than the best for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
So when you know that, start journaling, start looking at yourself, write yourself letters in the future. So what I did was I always wrote letters. For example, if this is 2025, I will write myself a letter for 2026 and say, hey, girl, you did amazing. You accomplished so much this year. This is what you accomplished. This is how you behave in the world. This is who you are in the world today. And always try to give back, try to make yourself of service of others. How I make myself of service is my family. I have a very large family in my country that needs my help. That gives you a lot of like good juju in a way. So journaling really helped. Reading self-help books, amazing. If you have faith, if you're a person of faith, trusting God, I am necessarily not a religious woman, but I'm a very spiritual woman. So understanding where you fall in that is going to help tremendously, and look for help. I was in therapy for months. I just hired my first spiritual director a couple of weeks ago, and it's never done. Like I said, you're always bettering yourself, but you got to start somewhere. And for me, it was obviously, I did a lot of YouTube of Abraham Hicks, many other of Joe Dispenza. I listened to a lot of meditations, and you start journaling, you start really visualizing and manifesting. And that's what pulled me out of a really dark hole. At the end of the day, we need to find the reason for the depression. When you find the reason, exactly what it is, you got to go at it and fix it, whatever it is. Because if not, you're never going to get out. You're always going to patch it, doom scroll, how do you call this, dissociation. and medication, drugs and alcohol. So all of that is a symptom of the actual problem, which is the source of the depression. That's what you really have to go and work. And some people are not ready for it. And it's okay. It is okay. When they'll be ready, they'll look for help. Hopefully they'll look for help. So I just didn't want to, I just didn't want to pile it anymore. I just wanted to let's just, open the doors of Pandora and see what's in there and deal with it. Because that is the only way that you can get out of the hole.
Goes back to what you were saying, is just having compassion for yourself and giving yourself that grace. You said that it took you 12 years to get out. Yeah, it may have taken you 12 years to get out of that relationship, but 12 years is better than never leaving the relationship. I was in my marriage or my last relationship for about 3 years total. It took me 3 years to get out. I knew I should have left after the second month of dating, but I wasn't ready. I was scared. I was not confident in myself. And yeah, it may have taken 3 years, but I'm thankful it didn't take 30 years for me to leave.
Correct.
So for anybody who is listening, if you're in any sort of unhealthy relationship, just know that it's going to be okay. Don't be so hard on yourself for staying longer than you are, because you're at the right place at the right time. And maybe you're still in that relationship so it can teach you something and really try to understand the lessons, because I think there's a lesson in every challenge as well.
Absolutely. It has to be the right time. And you're in nobody's clock, at the end of the day. I always wish my clients, my patients, to not waste their time if they know that it is inevitable. Look for resources, look for obviously safety and making sure that you're safe and you're not putting yourself in dangerous situations or anything like that, especially if you have children. But it comes in their own time. When you know, and hopefully sooner rather than later you can make a change. You made a change in 3 years. It took me 12. And I'm here. I am, telling the story and hoping that women don't repeat the same story again and again, because that's what I'm seeing multiple times. It's just, this is like another person. This is another. And it comes from not doing the internal work that we should be doing at all times.
Absolutely. And the internal work and the healing, it's a lifelong journey. Correct. It's not, here's a magic pill and you're healed, or here's a magic pill and all of your trauma is gone. It's a lifelong journey. So also another reason to give yourself grace, because we're always evolving. We're humans. We're constantly evolving. If you're 15 years old, you're not wearing the same pair of shoes you did when you were 5 years old. Right. Why? You outgrew it, and we're always growing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a never-ending game.
Yes, absolutely. So let's make it a beautiful one.
That's right. Get yourself out of situations that are not good for you this sooner rather than later, because you're going to save yourself so much sadness, so much. Oh my goodness. I remember just those moments, the moments I'm talking about, and you're like, what the hell am I doing here? And then take tear out and do it again. And I'm like, oh my God. Because
wipe your tears.
You just wipe your tears and then you do it again. And then you get the same results. And why? Why? But it's hard to break a pattern, especially when the pattern looks like luxury, when the pattern looks like vacations, when the patterns look like expensive handbags. you know? Those patterns are like, well, what am I going to do without all of this? And what am I going to do by myself? And who am I outside of here? More so than anything, what's my job? Do I have a career? Do I have to go back to work? Do I have to go back to, taking care of myself and dating? what am I going to do? I haven't dated in like 20 years. Those are my clients. That I'm just giving you the stories of my clients and like myself. But I had a client. This is a little story. And, you know, she was married for 25 years, 5 children, miserable 25 years. Left her husband, didn't date anyone, not a single man for 20 years. 20 years didn't date a single person. And recently she was like, she started to come and do like this, you know, the beauty treatments and whatnot. And she's like, I think I'm ready for like maybe going on a date. She meets this man on I think Bumble or something. And he swept her off her feet. He is very, very, very wealthy. And I'm like, it was all worth it at this point. She's like, absolutely. I was ready. He was ready. And I love him, you know? So never give up. There is always, but you got to do the work for yourself. I mean, it took this woman 20 years. I think you don't have to wait 20 years to do the work and, you know, heal yourself. But if you do, that's your, you know, that's kind of your timeline. But sometimes, you know, it's all possible. And the moment that you realize that you have to take care of yourself first and everything else will come afterwards. All of what you want will come afterwards. If you're not healed, you're going to repeat the same story. So
I completely agree with that. And I love that story that you just shared because it's also shows you don't compare your timeline to somebody else's because we all have different timelines. And I really like what you just brought up about how people don't want to leave because of vacations or the handbags. Well, I mean, I quite honestly, I wasn't getting any of that in my last relationship. So it wasn't something that I was tied to. But when I left Chicago and I moved to Mexico, I really wanted to see what I can do and to learn how to fall in love with myself again. When I moved to Mexico, I actually stayed in hostels for 2 months so I can just understand and appreciate the simple things in life. You know, like I was just grateful that the hot water was working. I was grateful that there was a kitchen to make food in. And when you start to accumulate gratitude for those little things, then the big things will eventually come and they won't be nice additions, but you're not going to rely on the big material things. Exactly. They're nice additions, but it's not something to rely on.
Oh my God.
Because when you go back and like look at the little things in life, like you're from Cuba, you understand, like you were just talking to me about CVS. Well, yeah, CVS has so many options, but you go to the local mercado, there's just one option on one of each thing.
Exactly. Just pick it up and leave.
Exactly. You go to the same fruit guy. He's going to have your fruit every week. You go get your toilet paper from the same brand.
And Aneta, to that point. So one of the things that really also helped me to grow and helped me to be at peace with myself when I was going through so much turmoil was those things, the gratefulness, because I know where I come from, right?
Yes.
I lived in my country for 21 years with no hot water, no toilet paper, no Wi-Fi, no cars. I had to hitchhike, no transportation, no options in the supermarket. You're giving a portion every month of something that you have to eat. And if somebody saw you getting out of a nice car, you are a prostitute, which is, you know, very, very simple. You know, it's a very different life. So when I came to the US and I saw all of this, a big part of who I am today is the practice of gratefulness and appreciation. Yes. When people in America, they complain about the most minimal things, I am like, you guys don't know what is life. You don't know what you don't know. And it's okay because you haven't been exposed to it. But I think that has made me, it's an edge that I have, and that you have now, like having this experience in Mexico. You have now an edge over everybody else because you are happy with so much less. So now you can actually continue to improve your feeling of being grateful and being so thankful because of what you actually do have now that you're coming back. So, my husband, this husband right now, he can be a little too, reality oriented in a way, right? I am the dreamer. I'm the manifester. I'm the, girl that looks at the sky and wakes up in the morning and says, it's a brand new day. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I look at him. I'm like, do you know what day it is? He's like, what day is it, Nelly? I'm like, it's a brand new day. And, darn it, just being appreciative for hot water, like being appreciative for like toilet paper, toothpaste. Okay. Toothpaste. It is an absolute, I look at my life and I'm like, I'm such a lucky girl. I wake up every day, every freaking day. And I'm like, such a lucky girl. Darn it. Thank God. Thank you, God. So if you can practice that, you don't have to live in Cuba. You don't have to live in a third world country. You don't have to go through the things that I went through and you went through living in a motel. You can just practice that appreciation of greatness today with the things that you do have. And that will make you, again, 10 times better, in a better mental state than anyone else. And to some extent, that's really one of the reasons why I stay in that marriage, is because, darn it, why am I complaining about with this man that is affording me all these beautiful, wonderful things? There was never any domestic violence, none of that stuff. It was just, we weren't, can put a round peg on a square, plate kind of a thing. And that appreciation is what kept me light, what kept me smiling. So I 10 out of 10 recommend be grateful, practice gratefulness for having a phone, for being in a computer, for having light, for having so many of the small little things. It can make or break your day, to be honest. So at the end of the day, you don't necessarily have to go live in a third world country. You can just appreciate the little things that you have today, like your phone, your light.
The attitude of gratitude is truly the biggest piece that has helped me as well, and you as well. You talk about hot water. I've had my fair share of no hot water in Mexico, and you just got to figure it out. You keep a bucket in the shower and you have to heat it up manually. Yeah. And I would just be grateful for that bucket. I would say it may be a bucket now, but I'm thankful for it, because when I do get a normal shower again, then I'll be even more grateful for it and I'll appreciate it more. So it's really, can you be grateful for what you have and focus on what you have instead of focusing on what you don't have? Yeah. Because when you focus on what you don't have, then you get yourself spinning into a circle of misery and ungratefulness. And I always recommend be grateful for what you have, and then you'll attract more of what you want.
Absolutely. Better said. Never better. I mean, I am the person that stops and smells the flower, and my husband is like, come on, let's go. And I'm like stuck in the flower smelling, and I'm like, look at so much greenery. He's like, you're crazy. I'm like, a little bit, but look at nature, stop and like ground on the soil or something. But it is an edge when you can find yourself in those spaces of, and now I call it my spiritual director. Instead of calling it gratefulness with GRA, is gratefulness, being gratefulness with GRE. And the moments of being grateful is the connection and the understanding that, damn, if we have this little bitty of thing, if we could have just not have it, and then we could have been in any of these war-torn countries right now. And we're not. We're sitting here. We're having conversation. We have amenities. So let's be absolutely grateful for that. And And it sounds annoying to my husband sometimes. They're like, you're too good. You're too annoying. Like, why? It could be, it could be so much better. I'm like, I know, but it could be so much worse.
It could. You don't have to take a bucket of water. You don't have to put it outside and let the sun heat it up so you can shower at night. Exactly. That's just the reality.
So yeah, those are the things that really saved me throughout my personal life, throughout my professional life, which we didn't have a chance to go over, but like more of that personal life, that's where it kind of has shined and helped me tremendously to keep a smile on my face, and not from a fake place, but from an actual place of like, wow, damn, I could be doing so much worse in a way. And just having that energy of like, I'm good, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Even when my team, my employees, they come in and they're like, oh, somebody, is having an issue with something. And I'm like, okay, what's the worst case scenario? And like, all right, it's okay. All right. We get it, Nelly. It's very refreshing. Most people don't walk around like that. And it's a pity, because, it brings you happiness and peacefulness. And that's what I'm all about.
And you're a great example all around, whether from being an employer or to being a wife or to even being a friend. And that's such a great example, because it's choosing to find the good in everything. And I think we need to spread more education on that. It could be worse, but it's not. Mm-hmm. Be grateful for the problems, because the problems give you an opportunity to create something better, or they give you the opportunity to see the good and to understand another perspective. That's Absolutely. A lot better.
Absolutely. From I have kind of departed from a couple of relationships because apparently I don't want to dwell in negativity. Mm-hmm. And some people live in a place where they're not ready to just embrace the better. They're not ready to embrace it on the daily basis, and it's okay. And I'm good with that, because I don't want to invite the opposite into my world. I am somebody that, to a point and to an extent, is always trying to solve problems. That is what I do for a living, solving problems for my clients, for my patients, etc. So it gets to be where if you come to me and you try to dwell on the negativity or on a problem, I am not going to be able to just listen. I will probably offer a solution. And, it could be seen as like, hey, can you just listen to what I'm trying to say, instead of trying to offer me a solution. And I could do that for a couple of times, but like the fourth, fifth time that you come in, we're going to try to solve the problem. And some people don't want to, solve the problem in a way. They just want to stay there and ruminate over it. So for me, the quickest I have a solution to my problem, or is not a real problem, I move on. And that's, I feel like, why I am where I am in terms of, my professional life, my personal life, is that I've tried to get over things quicker, and not necessarily process them for such a long time.
Yeah, that's so valid. It's actually wanting a solution, not just looking for to complain to somebody. Because like, from my background as being a hairstylist, and similar to you with your spa, it's like people go there because that's where it's a safe space, but it's also a lot of gossip. And I think like the biggest thing that I struggled with is that most people wanted gossip, but they didn't want the solution. Something that I've also learned is that if somebody comes to me with an issue, I've been learning to say, do you want me to listen, or do you want a solution? And that's also has helped me with relationships as well, by asking that question, because then I know if I'm going to overstep boundaries by trying to give you a solution when you really want me to listen. But I think if somebody keeps coming to me about the same problem and just wants me to listen, then we're going to create a boundary, because we 100%. Can't continue like that.
It's so interesting that you say that. It is, then it becomes my problem, and it can be that way because I maintain a very positive, energetic field around me. And that's what I recommend. A lot of women that I deal with, their friends and their family members and their neighbors and their coworkers form this literal barrier of issues, and they don't know how to keep themselves positive, and they become this person with carrying everybody's problem around. And they themselves might not have any problems, any issues, but they're carrying everybody else's burden. They want to be that friend, and they want to be that good of a sister or a wife or whatnot. And they don't take care of their own energy, their own mindset, their own ability to solve problems. So boundaries are completely gone, and they forget who they are and what they're trying to do. So that's one of the things that I recently have tried to shield myself from, because again, when you do work with a large amount of public, as you know, you end up with a lot of different energetic fields that might not have the brightest aura. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And what do you do? Do you go home and cry about it? Do you go home and like sage yourself, or do you, or you have, a separation, a healthy separation where you can keep your shine. And I feel like that's one of the things why my clients come back to me, because I'm able to keep that shine for every single person that comes in. And I give 100% all the time, 100%. But I've learned to do that instead of just absorbing it all like I used to.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love all of that. Thank you for sharing that. Before we go ahead and wrap things up, is there any last piece of advice that you'd love to leave with anybody who's listening to this?
Oh my goodness. There are a lot of, I said a lot of things. I think I've said everything. I just want to have an invitation, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to invite all of the listeners, if you're hearing this and if you're a woman over 35 years old who is running like a chicken without a head, who is head of household, who is an entrepreneur, who is trying to do the most for her family, and you have neglected your energy, your feminine energy, your positive energy, your health, your wellness, your beauty. You've been putting everything in the back burner. I want to, extend I call it my Live Vibrant Beauty and Wellness Guide, which is a wonderful document that I've created with tips and tricks if you're trying to live a better life, cosmetic wise, hormone optimization, mindset, and spiritual guidance. I have a lot of tips and tricks in there to help you get to a place where you shine again, where you feel vibrant again. And not only that, I also want to offer you, if you're listening, my 60-minute Live Vibrant session, where we go over all of these different pillars of health together and figure out a plan for you so that you can, again, get back to feeling beautiful, radiant, and sexy. So all you got to do is to go to my Instagram handle at live_vibrant_medspa and send me a DM Vibrant, and I'll be able to schedule that session completely free. And this is if you want to take your health and wellness and beauty and mindset to the next level. Like I said, I've lived a couple of lives, and I can be of use and be a great resource for all of you that want to take it to the next level. So that's my invitation for your audience.
Amazing. Thank you. And then where can people find you if they're local in Florida?
So we are at 1313 West Boynton Beach, Florida, Suite R-11. here in Boynton Beach. And go to my website, livevibrantmed.com, LIVEVIBRANT med.com. Here you're going to see all of the different services that we offer in the clinic, which go from Botox, fillers, facials to hormone replacement, IV nutrition, body contouring, weight loss. And I do coaching online for women all over the country. And we basically take this, all of what I have to offer here in the store, but you get it in an online platform with me. So yeah, I would love to be of service.
Thank you so much, Nelly. I'll have everything linked down in the description below so people can stay in touch with you. Thank you for joining us today.
You are amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
That's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in and doing this work with me. If today's conversation lit a fire in you, then you do not want to miss the Nourished Inside Out Live Virtual Summit happening on May 24th and May 25th. This isn't just another event, it's 2 days of real talk, soul deep healing, and powerful tools to help you nourish your mind, body, and spirit from the inside out. We're bringing together incredible speakers, heartfelt sessions, and a community that's walking the same path you are. Spots are limited, so head to the show notes below and grab your spot now. Let's grow, rise, and get nourished together. Until next time, keep choosing you.